Shots fired. Male down. Black male. Maybe 20.
Then, according to senior officers, one pulls out a gun and points it over the bonnet of the car. The officer fires 3 shots, killing the alleged gunman.
The fact is that any matter involving a shooting should be handled independently.
What you just saw were various events of individuals being victims of police brutality. Today, I will be informing you on what is the root cause of the discontent between America's police system and its inner cities. To begin with, the law enforcement has a reputation of using unnecessary force towards their citizens to resolve whatever issues, benign or not, they are faced with. For example, Michael Brown, an 18-year-old, was fatally shot by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. Brown was found to be unarmed and this case was not properly resolved. It also did not utilize full justice towards the officer until nearly a year later after Brown's death, which isn't a great response time. Law enforcement have abused their social authority, creating this trend of unnecessary arrests, attacks, and even killings. What's been noted is that those with a diverse ethnic background, primarily black people in this case, are the main targets. Going back to Ferguson, there are 52 officers on the force, in which 4 are black, while the actual Ferguson population is 66% black. This is only one of the many cities where black officers are greatly outnumbered by white officers and a lack of representation for the people in the communities. Because of this lack of diversity within the enforcement, those with ethnic backgrounds are also more prone to be targets. Another example is in Valdosta, Georgia, where the lack of diversity is great since of the 149 sworn officers, 117 are white, 27 are black, and only 5 are Hispanic/Latino. This is a huge issue because this creates miscommunication and uncomfortable situations between the departments and the citizens of the city. Keep in mind this is happening all around the country, and though there is some progress in making law enforcement more diverse, the tension between the two parties only grow as more incidents occur. Militarization is also a contributor to the discontent between the law enforcement and the communities. In response to the war on drugs, police departments implemented strong, strict trainings in order to reduce mass crime. But instead, these trainings are carried out to be used on racial minorities, and many more innocent people were harmed in the process. What was thought to benefit cities only seemed to damage them more. In more recent years, there have been patterns of these incidents. Washington Post mentioned blacks are 2.5 more times as likely as white Americans to be shot and killed by police officers. On top of this, 50% of the murder victims in this country are black. This connects to the painful history where black people are oppressed by a stronger authority. And just like history, when police officers strike citizens down at random, many locals bring aggressiveness to lash back. In addition, law enforcement has crossed the line when taking the lives of many when it wasn't their time. Teenagers are unfortunately a great example. Individuals like Anton Black and Tamir Rice were harshly abused when being arrested by police, and the end result was their lives being lost. Though there have been unconfirmed statements saying these boys resisted arrest, that does not mean their lives should end. Since 2014, 14 teenagers have faced the same fate and died in the hands of these officers. This, of course, does not consider the cases that were publicly announced. The losses of these young human beings have broken the hearts of many and led them to be outraged, creating this mistrust atmosphere towards the law enforcement. Because of this, relationships between police departments and their people only shatter more and more. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there. Politics have also gone the way in fixing this problem. Some parts of broken-hearted communities have tried joining forces to make a change, but cases such as the RVD and the US versus Bernan resulted in preventing minorities from attempting to become an officer, firefighter, and etc. Supreme Court has made a reputation of preventing a diverse law enforcement and enforcing barriers and restrictions that limits the amount of new recruits that can join. It seems that even those with the highest political power in the justice system also have a similar bias to the organizations below them. This definitely severs the connection between communities and the justice system due to the people having no law or individual to rely on. Fortunately, there are still ways to rebuild the connection that was lost between the law enforcement organizations and the people. The first step is obvious: having more diversity overall. Doing so will lead to a future with more diversity present in the law enforcement organizations. This can also lead to unity within the communities and less conflicts between each party. These changes have already happened in New England, and reports come in saying there is 11% reduction in the number of upheld complaints per officer. This is great progress and means officers and citizens are able to successfully communicate without any violence. This demonstrates that progress is possible for our nation, and the rebuilding of the unity between the two parties is indeed on the horizon. And finally, to actually resolve this problem, law enforcement organizations need to put in effort in order to gain the trust back from the citizens. A good start would be to demilitarize their forces. This automatically displays that officers are willing to handle cases with non-violent actions. Another good start would be to provide the chance to different ethnic groups to be recruited. By promoting new recruits are welcome, this encourages citizens to join and make a change. The rise of ethnicity can only bring more representation for minority groups and finally build trust. Of course, with the effort of the departments, citizens also need to contribute as well, and both parties must be accountable for their actions. Only then will the discontent between the law enforcement organizations and their communities will be resolved.